Hello all and welcome to another late night post-work beer review. It's still nighttime, not past 12 a.m. yet, as some of these reviews have been. And yeah, I'm looking forward to tonight's review. What are we reviewing tonight? Well, we are reviewing Pueo Pale Ale from Maui Brewing Company. Yeah, going to be reviewing another local brewery. I love reviewing local breweries because it's something that I can do that most other, more popular beer reviewers can't do. So, what is Pueo Pale Ale? Pueo Pale Ale, a West Coast style pale ale with balanced malt profile, kettle and dry hopped for hop intensity. This is a 5.6 ABV by volume. And it was last season's seasonal brew. And that's because I've already seen the Blood Orange Lorenzini double IPA already out on shelves. So this is a few months old, but being that it's in a can and it hasn't had a very stressful sort of transition from Maui to Oahu, I figure it's a pretty safe bet to go and drink. So, an interesting side note, Pueo is a Hawaiian owl. And here's a sort of stylized picture of it. Very stylized, actually. And it's quite rare, but not as rare as some other Hawaiian birds. It's still found in most of the major islands, though nobody who isn't actively seeking it will ever see one. And it's actually my family Aumakua, on my Hawaiian side of the family. So from Aumakua being sort of the spiritual, aka I guess totem guardian, animal totem guardian, though not all of them are animals. Some of them were plants or natural forces of nature that acted as sort of clan or family guardians. So you're kind of affiliated with it. And so my Hawaiian side, on my father's side anyway, I'm not sure what the Aumakua would be on my mother's side. A lot of people don't have that kind of history. It's been kind of lost to time. But traditionally, before the missionaries came, this animal was my family spiritual guardian. And I kind of like owls. No owl has ever saved me from my own poor decision making. It'd be kind of nice if they kind of did, every time I'm making a dumbass life decision, some owl will come around and like swoop and attack my head and say, "Dumbass, you dumbass." But things don't work that way in modern times. I'm kind of rambling on, even though this is actually better than most of my rambling on. Let's get to the beer, shall we? Trying to let this warm up a little bit, but it's still a little bit cold. And why? Because this one I find best expresses itself a little bit warmer than your average American pale ale serving temperature. Okay, got a cloudy, almost cloudy yellow with some hints of orange. Nicely carbonated, with a fluffy to fizzy off-white head. Definitely leaning more towards the hoppy side here in the bouquet. Got some pine, a lot of grassiness, some herbaceousness. Nice floral backbone too. So definitely floral and grassy. Some hints of juiciness. Actually, it does have some elements of juiciness, at least to the bouquet. And just a slight hint of dankness, very slight. But overall, very grassy, very floral. Some citrus too. very bitter for the style, I would say, for the pale ale style, even American pale ale style. Up front, you get some very dry, crackery malts, but then it just becomes a hop show from start to finish. The body, at least, is very much of the pale ale, so somewhat light bodied, so it's not like an IPA body there, but that means that the hops show up even more than they would. It seems like it's almost closer to a session IPA than you know, an American pale ale. So in the front, with those crackery malts, then comes a sort of lemony essence. Intense bitterness in the mids, but doesn't really gain a sort of dimension to that bitterness until the finish, in which it becomes very, very redolent of grapefruit pith. Now, what did I say? I let this warm up quite a bit before drinking it? Well, because when it is even just the slightest bit cold, you lose that malt essence there in the front, and also too as a sort of you know, underlying backbone that you don't sense much on your tongue, but you know, is providing balance on the palate, sort of. And it becomes very unbalanced when it's cold, which I think it's quite a tragedy, because you know, it's quite drinkable and enjoyable when it's, you know, like right now, somewhere in between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I have quibbles about this style-wise, mainly because it is so heavily hopped. You know, if you were if you would try to, you know, categorize this, you know, just from taste and mouthfeel alone, I'd have trouble placing it in the American Pale Ale category because of the intensity of the hopping, especially towards that finish there, where it just, you know, the bitterness is just lingering on and on and on your tongue, which is something that I consider absolutely characteristic of any of the IPA styles, that lingering hot bitterness on that palate long after, you know, you have already swallowed the beer. And you know, like I said in the beginning, the only thing that really comes across as sort of pale ale is just, you know, body feel, that mouth feel there. Not as watery as a session IPA, but definitely not as balanced, you know, not as thick and chewy as a regular IPA or even a double IPA. So while I would say this is better than, you know, their flagship IPA, which doesn't really, you know, I think they, just, you know, my opinion here, because I know a lot of people get kind of touchy about this kind of thing, I think they need to reform. Their weakest thing of their flagship line is their current Big Swell IPA, which is just intensely bitter and unbalanced without much definition to the hops at all besides bitterness. This is something, you know, where, yeah, it's definitely heavily hopped, but those hops have some definition both in the nose and on the palate when, you know, when it's warm enough. And so, you know, and I've also reviewed other of the specialty IPAs that they put out, and they've been sort of pretty good too. Nothing really knocking it out of the park. I would say that this brewery actually does a lot better with, you know, sort of darker porters and stouts. You know, and that's kind of their forte as opposed to, you know, the more hoppy styles. But, you know, I would say that this is I kind of lost my own point there. I'd say this is kind of, you know, pretty decent beer, even though I have like those quibbles over style and presentation, and the fact that you kind of have to order it a little bit warmer than you would something classified as American Pale Ale style. So that's a lot of words. I think I talked quite a bit in this one. Pueo Pale Ale, I don't think it's on the shelf anymore because of the fact that it was previous seasonal brew. But if you do get a chance to go and try it, I'm almost certain it'll come back at some point in time in the future, because this is about the second or third time around it's been released as a seasonal. You know, go out and try it, and kind of see what it's all about, and support the local, your local brewing industry. Well, if you are a beer drinker here in Hawaii, I know quite a few of my viewership. Most of you are, a good majority of you. I wouldn't say the plurality of you are in Hawaii. So. That's your beer review for tonight, folks. Cheers.